to Your Space with your host, Hannah Arinito. We are here once again to give you some nourishment for your mind. Did you know that you were set on this earth for more than just existence? Did you know that you have a purpose for living? Today on Your Space, we get down on ground with a one-on-one session with the young people. Join us.
Are you? Where are you? Makerere University. Clap for those are our OPs. Cavendish. Bishop Stewart. Excellent. So, I would like to share that the purpose of God, God did not have to meet a board or a committee or anyone, but because he is sovereign, he purposed it himself to ensure that you are knitted properly, carefully in your mother's womb. But before even that happened, he actually knew that at one point we would have someone called Lillian to implement my purpose in this direction. Before even your parents met or had any idea of how they can begin making you to be. Can you imagine? Me, when I read those things in scripture, I actually get scared. I'm like, hey, so God had already hitched this plan before I was even knitted carefully. So the purpose of God is very, very important. It's because God is sovereign and he purposes some of these things himself. For instance, he purposed that we'll be meeting here today. Many big people today don't encourage people to come to their homes. I don't know why. But somehow we get to their homes, like for instance, if they have died or if they have lost somebody. But why don't we use our beautiful spaces for such interactions? To just share and talk about how we can contribute to the national development of this country, how we can contribute in improving the lives of one another. And this is the spirit behind these interactions. We would like you to have impact in the different spaces you are in, to be able to strategize as Christian lawyers, to be the ambassadors of integrity in those different spaces in your universities as the student leaders. How can we promote integrity? We have had a program on values in partnership with UBC, and that is why you see some of my celebrities of UBC here. Joel and Monica. Joel is in third year. Monica is now in LDC. I don't know whether she has started or she's threatening to start. But there they are. And then we have our technician here. But we need to be engaging more on how we can, as Christian lawyers, employ and uphold those high standards of integrity in our different places, our different spaces, from the different universities we come to. How can you present yourself with distinctiveness and excellence? Because being a Christian student leader doesn't mean that you perform poorly in class. How do you come out to be unique? We all go through lectures. We are doing common things. What is it that we can do to identify ourselves and propel ourselves as that excellent performer? What God has for me keeps coming to pass. And what God has for you will also keep coming to pass. Know that you have the power to be a leader of substance. While I was at Makerere University Law School, some people approached me and said, no, but we want you to be our mama in the fellowship. And I said, but I've never been a mama in any fellowship. But there is always a beginning. Perhaps it was God who led their footsteps to me, to consult with me and see if I could accept. But when I tasted a bit of the leadership as the vice chairperson of the fellowship, I decided to be secretary organizing committee for Makerere Law Society. Because I saw that if I don't come out and offer my leadership, then I will have lost out, and even the people who should be benefiting from my leadership will have lost out. And that's why I'm happy to interact with you people here today. Because I know as leaders, you have the ability to impact the lives of those different people you are leading. I don't know how many they are, how many you have in your fellowship, how many people are following you, or how many followers you have. But this thing of following, I see when you post something on your status, sometimes you see that 170 people were able to view your status. So what is it that you are posting in your status? Are you posting a birthday party? Are you posting scripture? Because I realized you can even use that as an opportunity to reach out and let people get to know God. God has purposed you to be in a place like this for such a time as this because He has a plan. He knows that you're going to benefit something from this interaction. Secondly, we normally have petty people. People who major on trivial issues. People who want to gossip. Anti-balokole. Now they have gone. The other one has gone. He is wasting time. But things of God is not about wasting time. It's about being strategic on kingdom business. Because each and every person was born with a reason and has a purpose. How do you fulfill that purpose in your life? We should not be petty because you realize that even the gateway to possessing a great city at one point was a prostitute. If you remember the story of Samson. So if we who are Christians cannot impact positively, how can then a prostitute be the gateway to possessing a great city? Joshua 6:20 to 25. When you read through, you realize that God can exalt nothing above His purpose. To accomplish His purpose, He can even speak through an animal. Like He used, was it a donkey or an ass? To communicate. By the time an animal starts talking, friends, it is serious. One time we had a fundraising at St. John's Church, Kamocha. And was fundraising, I think, for revamping the church or building Sunday school or something. And some people were there, they contributed, and then this person was there. She didn't contribute. As she was going back home, near the Kasasiro, a mad woman who was picking things and throwing said, "Gwe, are we waiting for a mad person to reawaken us in that direction?" 1 Samuel chapter 1 verse 4, you realize that God is able to turn things around. And God is about to turn things around in your own life. Can you comprehend that? That He is able to turn things around and bring you out as this responsible leader who will have influence, who will manage to transform the lives of other people. God is about to do something extraordinary in our lives, to transform us first of all, to make us better leaders, and to help us be impactful out there. And my prayer is that we need to impact people with integrity. How do we be the ambassadors of integrity in those different institutions? You know, God, because He's great, He actually does amazing things. I was reading one time about a man called Elkanah. Elkanah had 2 wives. He had Peninnah and he had Hannah. One was childless and the other had children. The one who had children was highly favored. And Hannah would feel tormented, he would feel bad, she would feel isolated. Even when he's giving out things, he'll give the other with children more than this one who does not have children. So, for some reason, Hannah then got to withdraw, got out of the spotlight, and does not even recognize who she is. But remember that God was able to use her co-wife. God used her co-wife, Peninnah, to torment her and cause her to wake up. Peninnah was the catalyst. Peninnah kept on saying, "You're childless, you're useless, you're not even recognized by anybody anywhere. You're a nobody." So Elkanah gives Peninnah double portion. Peninnah decides to torment Hannah. Hannah was provoked to a point that she went and started seeking God even deeper. Friends, what is it that is provoking you to seek God deeper? What is it that is going to make you to launch deeper in your Christian walk? Hannah prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly, and we see that God eventually actually answers Hannah's prayer. I am not talking about the history of Elkanah and his what? His women. Because personally, I don't support polygamy. For me, we are raised to have exclusive possession. If your wife, you are the one and only. If you hear that there's another only one, there's a big question mark in that relationship. But today, I would like to talk about Daniel. Daniel was taken into captivity. He didn't know what would happen to him. He had lived like a prince, but later on he became a slave. He was forced to go to Babylon, a place which was inhospitable, where life was very difficult compared to Jerusalem, where they were before. He was surprised when the chief of the court officials chose him and his friends, and they were to be trained to serve the king. 3 years they were taught and trained. Later on we discovered Daniel was actually a dreamer also, like Joseph. He would interpret dreams. God gave him the ability. And by reference, even today, God still uses dreams. He can speak to you in a dream. But there are also some people out there who forge dreams that God has told me that you are going to be the one. What kind of dream is that? Why does he speak when the other person and not the other? Eh? For me, one time, I was involved in ministry with the Anglican Youth Fellowship Choir. And I was in second year law school, and we were doing subjects which were a bit complicated, like land law, and very, very complex. So we were involved in ministry. The whole weekend we were out there singing and doing evangelism, and then I get back, and the following day, I'm supposed to be sitting the land law exam. And I got back rather tired. Each time I tried to read, the songs we were singing were continuously playing in my mind. And I was like, hey, God, I have been doing your work. You can see that now I'm so tired, I'm so drowsy, I'm so sleepy. I am going to sleep, but do my work also. Indeed, I slept. When I slept, I rested. Then a dream came that I was doing the land law exam. I was in the paper. The papers were given to us. I opened the paper. I read through the questions. When I was just about to begin writing, I woke up. I was like, hey, I think God has done it. This was a real paper. I saw the dates. It was a real paper. So God had shown me direction, and I read exactly those. If we had mobile phones, I would have sent WhatsApp messages to all my friends and said, concentrate on these areas. But in the morning, as we were walking to the faculty of law, I kept on saying, you people, did you read this area? Did you read this area? Did you read this area? Did you read? I went and did the paper, and I came out the best in land law. I am not saying go and begin dreaming. Work hard, read, prepare. For me, that's how God did it for me, and I came out the best, and later on land law opened for me so many opportunities, like consultancies while I'm still a student, doing a consultancy where you're able to pay and clear your fees, tuition for the entire academic just semester. They are paying me a lot of money. I was able to pay tuition up to 4th year plus, and I even bought a car. So it was a lot of money. Just know that she was a lot of money. And my friends are wondering, but what is this about Patricia? How come she's already driving? It's about serving God. When you do things of God, He also does your things. So Daniel was taken to serve. They were trained with his friends. But Daniel made a resolution. He resolved not to give up or give in to steward certain things. He would not defile himself, nor even bow down to the pagan gods. What resolutions are you making as students, what are those resolutions you're making, especially for the glory of God? Are you determined to live for something greater? Do you have a purpose that is bigger than you? Recently, Irene Kauma's book was launched, and it was about determined. When you're determined to do something, then you follow that purpose, and then God is able to use you to bring everything to pass. You find yourself even serving great rulers or greater empires, or rising and rising and rising. Daniel was among the best and brightest of the Hebrews, and was chosen along with 3 other young men from the tribe of Judah to be part of the court to serve King Nebuchadnezzar, who had been the leader who had actually taken over the Babylonian rule. Now Daniel and his friends decided to take another course. For them, they remained true to the higher purpose. As leaders, are you going to remain true to the higher purpose? They sought to glorify God by serving with excellence. Even the king who had taken them as slaves. Today, when someone has captured you or conquered, you don't want to serve in that person's territory. But this is a situation where these are slaves captured, conquered, and they're taken to serve the conqueror. And they go there and work with excellence. Sometimes you find yourself in spaces where there is no fear of the Lord. How do you come out and serve with integrity so that people see you and know that, this person surely has a fear of the Lord in him? So that people begin to admire that character. And that is the integrity we are talking about. Are you able to remain true to yourself as a child of God, even in turbulent waters? Are you able to sail above the tide and stand out with distinctiveness? Daniel chose to glorify God by serving with excellence the king who had made them slaves, actually. Let us be purposeful and intentional on some of the decisions we make as leaders. Daniel's sense of purpose did many things for him. Many things for him. One, purpose gave him clarity. Purpose gave him clarity on a number of things to do with his life. Being chosen for special treatment by his captors must have been confusing. Even if you are the one and the enemy captures you and again takes you to serve in his courts in important places, you can get confused and say, but these are enemies. How again am I here serving the enemy? Sometimes you can get a feeling of resentment for the people who had conquered him or the nation. Sometimes it's a mixture of hope for a better life, saying, well, they have conquered us, let us go and serve. You never know what will come out of it. Would he let his loyalty and grief push him to bitterness? Sometimes by human nature, you think that because this person conquered us, it's now time for payback, revenge, and do only negativities to make the leader fail. Or would you be grateful for a chance at making a difference? He is an enemy leader, he has conquered. Like, for instance, look at our country. You have done constitutional history, the road to independence. From the time of the order in council, from the time, was it 1894, when Uganda became a British protectorate, and then we see the British coming in, and we see them coming up with their leadership methods in administration, and then this permeates through, and then we see the ramifications of the 1902 order in council, the 1921, then we move the Bataka riots, and these things are spreading in the country. Even the Acholi now have a paramount chief, and the Itesos and the Langi, and then the Masaza, things like that. And the foreigners take advantage of the traditional setup and push for the administration of the British colonial rule, and they take charge. And then we see some people trying to challenge it. we see the 1900 Buganda Agreement and the mistakes made. Some people come up and they are challenging, saying, no, you cannot now begin paying a salary to our Kabaka or the mother of the Kabaka who is in Amasole. And then there is the issue of the land question, that now the maps were drawn wrongly. Buganda was supposed to stretch up to here. And we see the other people beginning to come into an uprising and challenging. And then later on, we see independence happening, and the rulers come, others come as rebels, others come as liberators, and then we eventually end up with a fundamental change. And they say it's not just a change of God, but it's a fundamental change. And then we now begin looking at that leadership up to today. But as a law student, you realize that there are so many lessons to learn from that political history, from that constitutional history, on the way to independence. What brought the disagreement? What brought the problems? And today you are able to analyze and see that if this had not been done in 1900, we would not be having some of these land challenges today. And that opens our eyes to lots of things. Going back to Daniel, it's usually easy for someone in a certain position to lose direction and begin to challenge the leadership. But the Bible says leadership comes from God. It starts from being a student leader. And then tomorrow you'll be an MP or even a minister or even an IGG or even, someone in different spaces. Take this as training ground to equip you, to prepare you for even bigger or greater things. Like we saw Daniel from a slave to serving in the king's court. And later on we realize that he served 4 different kings. 4 different kings. We need to understand ourselves and see exactly what God wishes for us. What is this purpose we are talking about? We need to find the idea for which we can live and die. What is your niche? What would you live for? That for me, this is a do or die. This will bring me out in this direction. Daniel and his friends actually faithful to God and make the most of the opportunity they were given to serve. So you realize that purpose gave them clarity on the direction they should be taking, clarity to know that we are not supposed to defile ourselves with certain things. Today we have so many things happening. There are vices out there, and some people are beginning to accept to live with it, that, well, the homosexuals have come, okay, those are their rights. We are supposed to accept to live with it. But as children of God, we are supposed to be exemplary. We are supposed to set the standard. And we have to dissect between wrong and right. What is good for us? What is bad for us? And throw away what is bad for us and promote what is good. And purpose can give us also conviction as leaders in our different spaces. When Daniel and his friends were offered food from the king's table, which would have caused them to violate the dietary laws which had been set up already, which they always followed, they had a choice to make. Would they bow to the convenience or stand upon conviction? But we see that they chose conviction, and they decided that they would not defile themselves by whatever ways. Friends, this was a great risk these people took. It was a great risk because if their actions did not yield positive results, it would actually lead to death. It meant death for all of them if it did not yield positive results. But you realize that they stood for what was right, knowing that they would win even if they lost. That is why Daniel chapter 3, I don't remember which verse, where Daniel told the king, with respect, "Oh, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not have to defend ourselves in this matter. The God whom we serve will be able to save us from this situation. But even if he does not, O king, know it from us that we shall not bow down to such an idol." They were led by conviction. Are you able to stand out as a student leader who fears the Lord and go by conviction, by your conviction as a child of God? Are you able to stand for integrity and say, but me, my values are this: truthfulness, honesty, integrity. I will not compromise my standards on this. As leaders, we sometimes make mistakes. Like if I share my testimony, you realize that for me, mine was accelerated growth by the grace of God. I found myself at one point heading a regional office. I don't remember. Well, it was Soroti Regional Office with the Human Rights Commission. And I had not gone through schools of leadership. A letter, a memo was just written that, Patricia, you will be the acting head of the region. And I took on leadership. I had a budget I was controlling. I had investigators, I had some lawyers, I had people whom I was working with, I had UN volunteers. I would send people out for investigations, I would organize trainings, I would organize tribunal sessions. But in that leadership, there are certain mistakes I made. Because remember, I had technical people, and I also had administrative people. Technical people were always going to the field and getting per diems, sometimes 4 nights. 4 nights, if you understand the way government works, those who travel normally get a lot of money from per diem because you're able to save. You don't have to spend it all in the hotels or wherever you're staying. So you get to save that money. So for me, with the humanitarian perspective, I have a staff meeting and I was like, well, we have people who go to the field and those who don't go to the field. Everybody who goes to the field will be giving at least 1 night to facilitate the people who are staying and not going to the field. Now for me, from my perspective then, as a leader who was naive, I knew that was the best thing to do to motivate my people. So the people going to the field were very okay with it. They were like, hey, okay, if I have 3 nights, I'll just leave 1 night for the administrators who are doing the typing, the reports and whatnot. But that was a mistake. Later on, it caused me some problems. So as leaders, sometimes we make mistakes. It doesn't mean that you don't fall. No, we make mistakes, but the most important thing is how you're able to collect yourself and rise up out of that mistake.
I hope after that insightful session, you and I now have a purpose for living today. Thank you again. See you again next week, same time, same place, right here on Your Space.